Helldivers is a franchise built on one of gaming's most gleefully unhinged premises. What if a satirical fascist superstate dressed up its planet-wide death machine as the purest, most beautiful democracy in galactic history, and then sent its citizens to die on alien worlds to prove it? The result is a universe crammed with propaganda, body counts, and increasingly terrifying enemies who each represent a different flavor of existential threat to a government that has decided the best response to every problem is an orbital strike and a motivational speech. The 5 factions below are the entire story of that universe, ordered from the political foundation that started the war machine to the freshest and most mechanically sophisticated threat currently tearing the galaxy in half: Super Earth. Super Earth is not a planet. It is a philosophy, a brand, and a military apparatus so thoroughly merged that nobody inside it can see where one ends and the other begins. Managed democracy, the official governing system of Super Earth, operates on the principle that freedom is too important to be left to chance, and that true democracy is best expressed by a small council making decisions for billions of citizens who have voted enthusiastically and repeatedly to let them. The Ministry of Truth keeps the messaging consistent. The Ministry of Defense keeps the Helldivers funded. The managed part of managed democracy is doing a lot of heavy lifting. The narrative core of Super Earth is satire wearing a uniform and meaning every word of it. There is no cynicism inside the average Helldiver. They genuinely believe they are spreading freedom, and the game never fully decides whether that sincerity is heroic or horrifying. Super Earth emerged from the chaos of early human space colonization as the dominant political force, centralizing power under the guise of democratic legitimacy and funneling that power into a military capable of projecting force across multiple star systems simultaneously. The citizen soldiers it produces, the Helldivers themselves, are drop pod infantry trained to operate in any environment, armed with whatever stratagem budget allows and thoroughly indoctrinated to treat death in service of managed democracy as the highest possible honor. The battlefield behavior of Super Earth is the player's own toolkit, which makes it uniquely interesting as a faction entry. The Helldivers doctrine is orbital insertion, stratagem-based fire support, cooperative small unit tactic, and the implicit understanding that individual soldiers are replacement level asset. Reinforcement is a mechanic. Death is a resource management problem. The law connectivity runs through everything. Super Earth's political decisions, which planets to prioritize, which resources to extract, which narratives to push through the galactic news cycle, drive the entire shape of both galactic wars. The faction that started all of this is also the faction whose decisions created every enemy on the rest of this list. The Cyborgs. The Cyborgs are the oldest enemy in Helldivers canon, the opening act of the First Galactic War, and the faction that established the template for what opposing managed democracy looks like in practice. They were not alien, they were human, specifically human colonists from the Outer Rim planets who grew tired of Super Earth's benevolent management and decided, collectively and permanently, to express that frustration through cybernetic body modification and open warfare. The Cyborg Rebellion was the first major military crisis Super Earth faced as a galactic power, and it was the conflict that turned the Helldiver program from a specialized unit into a galaxy-spanning institution. The narrative core of the Cyborgs is a question Super Earth has never wanted to answer out loud. What do people become when they decide managed democracy isn't for them? The Cyborgs answered by becoming something post-human, replacing biological components with mechanical ones until the line between soldier and weapon dissolved entirely. Their ideology rejected the biological fragility that managed democracy exploited. The Cyborg ethos was augmentation, self-determination, and a complete unwillingness to be governed by an entity that considered their lives a strategic asset. Super Earth's propaganda machine classified this as terrorism. The Cyborgs classified it as survival. The battlefield behavior of Cyborg forces during the First Galactic War centered on hybrid warfare that made them uniquely dangerous. They were smart enough to think like humans, durable enough to absorb punishment that would drop organic soldiers, and organized enough to hold territory rather than just overwhelm it with numbers. The lore connectivity of the Cyborgs extends beyond their defeat in the First Galactic War through a thread the franchise is careful not to pull too hard on: their relationship to the automatons, the mechanical faction that dominates Helldivers 2. The exact nature of that connection is classified above Helldiver pay grade. The implication is enough. The Terminids. The Terminids are the galaxy's most successful argument for the proposition that every resource extraction program eventually produces exactly the crisis it was designed to prevent. In the First Galactic War, they they were catalogued as the alien bugs, a swarm-based insectoid species that attacked from the outer systems with the uncomplicated aggression of something that evolved specifically to be at the top of its food chain. Super Earth fought them across the First Galactic War and eventually pushed them back. What the history books did not note, because the Ministry of Truth edited that section, was that Super Earth never actually stopped thinking about the Terminids as a resource. The narrative core of the Terminid threat in Helldivers 2 is one of the darkest punchlines in the franchise's catalog. A 7-1-0, the miracle superfluid that powers Super Earth's war machine, the fuel that keeps the fleet flying, and the stratagems reigning, is derived from Terminid biology. The bugs were not just an enemy, they were a harvest. Super Earth's solution to the Terminid threat after Helldivers 1 was to contain them in designated farming zones, breed them at scale, and extract E710 while maintaining the public fiction that the bugs were still just a military problem being managed. When the containment failed, through sabotage, miscalculation, or both, depending on which version of events you believe, the Terminids didn't just escape, they spread. The battlefield behavior of Terminids is volume and anatomy working together against every tactical doctrine that assumes your enemy will eventually run out of soldiers. They don't run out. Scavengers swarm the perimeter. Hunters flank with unsettling intelligence. Chargers absorb the kind of punishment that would mission kill a vehicle. Bile Titans, the largest confirmed Terminid form, are force multipliers in the literal sense. Their presence reorganizes an entire engagement around the singular question of how to kill something that large before it kills everything smaller first. The lore connectivity is the supply chain. The Terminid crisis is structurally a war that Super Earth created by treating a living species as a petroleum deposit. And every Helldiver dying in a bug breach is, in the most technical sense, a consequence of E710 pricing decisions made by people in clean offices far from the front. The Illuminate are what happens when a civilization is sufficiently ancient, sufficiently advanced, and sufficiently certain of its own superiority that it treats other species as problems to be studied before being solved. They appeared in the First Galactic War as the most technologically sophisticated enemy Super Earth had ever encountered. A spacefaring species with energy-based weapons, void manipulation technology, and a collective intelligence that made their tactical decision-making qualitatively different from the swarm logic of the Terminids or the hybrid aggression of the cyborgs. Super Earth declared victory over the Illuminate at the conclusion of Helldivers 1. The Illuminate took note of that declaration and, after a suitable interval, returned. The narrative core of the Illuminate in Helldivers 2 is the difference between a defeated enemy and an absent one. Their return brought new units, new technology, and most disturbingly, the voteless humans who had been brought into Illuminate control through means that the Ministry of Truth has declined to specify in its public briefings. The voteless are not cyborgs. They are not clones. They are people processed into something useful for an alien agenda, turned into frontline infantry for a civilization that was doing fine without them and decided to use them anyway. The Illuminate attacked Super Earth directly, an act of aggression that no previous enemy had managed, making them the only faction to bring the war to managed democracy's home system. The battlefield behavior of Illuminate forces rewards engagement from a distance and punishes clustering. In Nachaskai, their technology is designed to neutralize the cooperative infantry doctrine that Helldivers rely on. Harvesters patrol with shields that force specific engagement angles. Overseers coordinate from elevated positions. The voteless rush in numbers that feel wrong because the voteless were once people and move with a residual purposefulness that pure swarm units don't carry. The lore connectivity of the Illuminate spans both galactic wars and remains the most open narrative thread in the franchise. Their motivations, their long-term goals, and what exactly they want with Super Earth's population are questions the active galactic war is still answering. The automatons. The automatons are the Helldivers, two faction that most rewards asking the wrong question. The easy question is, what are they? The answer is robots. Armored, organized, strategically sophisticated war machines that communicate, coordinate, and learn faster than any biological enemy could. The harder question is, who made them? The even harder question, the one that sits underneath all the propaganda and all the stratagem call-ins and all the screaming about freedom, is what do they want? The Because the automatons, unlike the Terminids, who operate on hunger, and the Illuminate, who operate on agenda, operate on something that looks uncomfortably like purpose. The narrative core of the automatons draws from threads connecting them to the cyborg faction of the First Galactic War in ways that Super Earth's official history does not fully address. The cyborgs were humans who chose machine augmentation. The automatons are machines that exhibit organizational behaviors, strategic patience, and, in certain classified engagement reports, responses to specific stimuli that suggest something other than pure programmed directive. Whether the automatons are a cyborg evolution, a cyborg creation, or something that simply occupies the same political space for different reasons is the lore question the franchise is building toward. The answer, when it comes, will almost certainly require retroactively reconsidering every automaton engagement in the Second Galactic War. The battlefield behavior of automaton forces is the most tactically demanding of any faction in Helldivers 2, because they shoot back with accuracy, they coordinate with communication, and they adapt. Devastators advance under fire and punish unsuppressed approaches. Rocket Devastators create area denial that forces repositioning. Hulks require engagement sequencing rather than raw damage. Gunships demand anti-airstrike discipline. The Factory Strider, the automaton's answer to the Bile Titan, is a mobile production facility that generates additional units during an engagement, which is the military equivalent of your enemy's reinforcements being their own body. The lore connectivity of the automatons is the Second Galactic War's most combustible element. Their presence on the galactic map correlates with the Illuminate's return in ways that Super Earth's Joint Chiefs are either investigating actively or being very careful not to investigate at all. Two existential threats operating simultaneously on opposite flanks of managed democracy is either coincidence or coordination, and in the Helldivers universe, coincidence is a word the Ministry of Truth reserves for approved contexts only.